Hello and welcome to Chalk Talk, a special edition of Chalk Talk. I'm Andrew Todd Smith, alongside Lantern TV's Assistant Sports Director. Never thought I'd be saying these words, Aaron, but it's our National Championship Special. This team going into the National Championship, of course, in Arlington, Texas on Monday night with a 13-1 record. How did they get here? Everybody had written them off after the Virginia Tech loss. Home loss by 14. Everybody had written them off after the Penn State game that took 2 overtimes to triumph over a lesser team in State College. And then, of course, when JT Barrett goes down in the Michigan game. It's been a heck of a season to have the privilege of covering with you. But you were at the Sugar Bowl where they emerged victorious over the #1 Alabama Crimson Tide. So give us a little insight as to how they did it with a third-string quarterback.
Well, Cardell Jones, and it's quite honestly unfair to continue to call him a third-string quarterback at this time. He started off in the spring game way back when. He was the #2 guy, and then Braxton Miller goes down in the preseason. JT Barrett moves into the #1 spot. He's still in the #2 spot. So, yes, he's technically the third-string quarterback, but he's never really been in that third-string capacity because he's had quite a bit of playing time this season so far whenever Ohio State has the nice little lead. And quite honestly, against Alabama, he was looking like a starter. He was able to find open receivers under the zone coverage. He was able to convert several third-down conversions and, quite honestly, truck through the secondary like a running back. Still playing kind of like a redshirt sophomore because he's still making mental mistakes here and there. Threw an interception at a critical time in the first half against Alabama.
Cyrus Jones.
Allowed Alabama to almost put the game away, but still he was able to continue to fight back. Sacked 3 times, not necessarily his fault, but the way he was sacked, twice almost in the end zone for a safety. So those kind of mental errors and mistakes you cannot make going into the national championship game. So hopefully all the rust is off the cylinders, as it were. Ezekiel Elliott in the offensive line, no big surprise here. Able to open up inside rushing lanes against the Alabama defensive line, which everybody in the nation said not possible. Of course, the 85-yard touchdown run that Ezekiel Elliott had in the end of the fourth quarter to pretty much put the game away for them.
Yeah, Elliott had 20 carries for 230 yards. We thought 20 for 220 against Wisconsin was impressive, and here he has a breakout performance against the Crimson Tide. But we were able to get some feedback from Urban Meyer and left tackle Taylor Decker on the contributions of Ezekiel Elliott and what he means to this team right now.
His last 2 games are really productive. He's a little tougher than I thought he would be. His post-contact yards are probably a little bit more than I thought they would be. He's a really tough runner. And so a little bit surprised, but it's not like we didn't have high expectations for him.
The biggest thing that we looked into with Cordell starting is just making sure that he's comfortable in the pocket. So that's me, the running backs, the O-line, and the tight ends, So just keeping them comfortable during pass protection and make sure he doesn't feel too much pressure so he can just be comfortable and be poised back there.
Some of his best plays, you could say, are plays he makes without the ball. I always think that, he kind of has an offensive lineman mindset, but he just plays running back, He likes to go cut block people. He likes to go take people out. He doesn't back down from, blocking a defensive tackle if he has to. He just does what he is told to do, and he does it a million miles an hour. And, it's fun to block for a guy like that will do anything for the team.
Guess you like admiring those 85-yard runs too, huh?
Yeah, those little drive shorteners, you hear the crowd start screaming, and you know he's gone. So those are definitely fun.
So high praise for Ezekiel Elliott. Of course, Urban Meyer, quite surprised, frankly, based on the development of Ezekiel Elliott. He gets more yards after contact than he ever could have dreamed of. So just a sophomore, too. So you talked about Jones being efficient on third down, but let's talk a little bit about what they did on third down against Bama on defense, because that was kind of the key to the game.
They were able to hold Alabama for 2 of 13 on third down conversions. They forced the 4th down situation where Alabama was able to convert both times, but still, you're looking at those combined stats. 4 times out of 15, they were able to extend the drive. Also, the defense, they gave up 400 total yards against Alabama. However, they did have 3 interceptions on the day, one including an interception return for a touchdown on Steve Miller, and of course, Tyvis Powell's second game ball.
Oh, of course, yeah. But I love the fact that you brought up the Steve Miller interception return, because I referenced the Penn State game, and I'll get to what the gist of my point is the fact that this team woke up in the middle of the second quarter. The Alabama Crimson Tide committed a key error, committing a foul with about 8 minutes left to go in the half, and Ohio State just seized momentum. They were trailing 21-6 after TJ Yeldon went in, and Ohio State just, like I said, they woke up. They have a grinded out drive where Ezekiel Elliott gets a rushing touchdown after that personal foul penalty. So they go 71 yards, no problem. What did they do before halftime? You know I don't like trick plays, Aaron, but they pulled one out of their magic hat, and they didn't rely on them, which I think is the key that I try to drive home. But you have Evan Spencer complete a pass for a touchdown to Michael Thomas, and you have this team trailing the #1 team in the country by 1 at the half when they trailed them by 15.
And Ohio State comes out in the second half, and they receive the ball, and they don't look back.
Bingo. You're right. 47-yard touchdown pass to Devin Smith. They pick up where they left off. So to think,
and you know what they say when Devin Smith catches a touchdown pass?
Ohio State wins the ball game. So you have 28 unanswered points. It didn't really seem like that when we were watching the game. I know you were there, but it's mind-boggling to think that they had 4 unanswered touchdowns bookending halftime on this #1 Crimson Tide team. So circling back, Steve Miller, that was the 4th of these 4 crucial touchdowns where Ohio State took a 34-21 lead on his interception return of Blake Sims. Double rifle. We joked about it during the season because that's exactly what happened when JT Barrett threw a pass to defensive player, big guy, Anthony Zettel at Penn State. He gets his mitts on the ball and runs it back. Steve Miller did the same thing. So it's almost poetic that they're triumphing over the #1 team in the country in exactly the way that Penn State gave them fits back in late October. So let's talk about how the fact that Ezekiel Elliott is their go-to back. What does he have, 1,600 yards in the season now? I mean, the guy's just getting it done. But they're so efficient on third down. And so if they can keep that efficiency going on both sides of the ball, and they can maintain that balance, because they had 281 rushing yards against Alabama, and they had 256 passing. So Cardale Jones, as you said, he's not a third stringer anymore. This team is poised to make a statement on Monday night. Wouldn't you agree?
Exactly. They're going for the triple crown of Heisman Trophy finalists. They faced Melvin Gordon in Wisconsin.
Check.
Amari Cooper in Alabama.
Check.
And now the winner, Marcus Mariota at the quarterback position on the Oregon Ducks in their high-powered offense. And quite honestly, I think the key to beating this is beating the Oregon Ducks is what they did back in the 2010 Rose Bowl when Ohio State was playing Oregon. And a lot of people in the nation thought that Ohio State didn't have much of a chance going into that game. And what you do is you control the tempo of the game.
Certainly.
You have to slow it way down in your favor, keep your defense off the field, make sure you limit their amount of possessions and the amount of time they have to score, force them to go up-tempo, and start creating some mental errors.
Definitely. We heard earlier in the week, again, from Urban Meyer talking about the challenge. In other words, he said that a team that plays up-tempo like that, it could work in Oregon's favor or to their disadvantage. Because if you go too quickly and you go 3 and out and you only took 30 seconds off the clock, all of a sudden Ohio State, if they can grind it out in these drives with Ezekiel Elliott, he's going to be the key to neutralizing that tempo. And then all of a sudden Ohio State possesses the ball for 2/3 of the game, and Oregon, if they're not efficient on those short possessions, they'll be out of answers. So I completely agree with you. But let's hear how Urban Meyer phrased it for us earlier this week.
We run similar offenses, a lot of the similar plays. Their tempo, the risk of tempo offense, which I debated for years, is you 3 and out them, and then 24 seconds you just took off the clock, and you're playing a good team. That's not good. So there's plus and minuses. You have a quarterback like that, that's usually pluses.
I think our offense is more of a power-based offense, more of a just try to drive it down your throats. But tempo-wise, I don't think there's much of a difference. They don't do their super fast tempo until they get a big play or a first down or something like that, and then they're just going to try to keep you off balance. And that's what our offense does, is when they get a big play, they're rushing to the line as fast as they can and tempoing, or when they need just some play made, they're going to try to tempo a little bit, and that's the exact same as Oregon. Now, Oregon's a lot more perimeter type play, kind of like Clemson was last year, but our offense just tries to just go downhill.
The thing that, the best player, the Heisman Trophy winner, and he should have been the Heisman Trophy winner. I'm glad he got it. For a lot of reasons, I'm glad he got it. I just love who he is. Great player, great person, great leader, you can tell. Plays his best when it's hard. Plays his best. The Michigan State game was a perfect example. He extends plays, and he's the biggest challenge. Tempo offense is really hard, but tempo offense with an average player, it's not that hard. When Cooper was on the field or off the field, we knew last week, Melvin Gordon, we had stuff all over the kids' lockers about stop this guy, and they're, everybody's, it's very clear. And if it's not now, it certainly is getting clearer. He's the guy.
Meyer, of course, no shortage of praise for the Heisman winner, rightful winner. Based on what we've seen from Cooper and Gordon, Mariota poses a certainly surmountable challenge for the Buckeyes, but they're going to have to earn their keep on Monday night. The guy's only thrown 3 interceptions on the year. He's 40 passing touchdowns, a receiving touchdown, and 15 rushing touchdowns. The guy doesn't really make mistakes. Oregon, it's important to note that they're #1 in turnover margin in the country, plus 20. I was shocked when I looked that up. Of course, his 3 interceptions and 7 fumbles, 3 of which he's been responsible for, mean they've given the ball away 10 times. They've taken it away 30 times. Between Elliott and grind-out drives that we've talked about, Ohio State's equipped to, eclipse that touchdown favorite status that Oregon has. But how are they going to do it, Aaron?
Well, quite honestly, it's like you're saying with the turnovers, they can't commit them.
Yeah.
You cannot throw or fumble the ball and give it right back to Oregon with a short field. You're going to be down. You're going to be down in a hole quickly. So ball control, tempo, controlling that, time of possession, dominating the time of possession, keep your defense off the field so they're rested, keep their defense on the field. Pretty much in the red zone, you have to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
You can't kick field goals in the red zone against
certainly.
Oregon and think that you have a chance to win. Those have to be touchdowns.
Yeah, no, that's a great point because 21-6, if those are touchdowns and not Sean Nurnberger field goals against Alabama, you have a 21-14 ball game, and suddenly that has a different feel to it. So I do agree that Ohio State can't afford to get off to a slow start. They essentially spotted Alabama a quarter and a half of a grace period before they kind of woke up and found their identity and executed their game plan. But yeah, as you said, it's crucial that they cannot turn the ball over because Oregon showed that they can be opportunistic with that up-tempo offense. When they, just like what Michael Bennett was saying, when they sort of knock you in the teeth and get you off balance, that's when they pounce and that's when they go no huddle. And you saw the the countdown clock in between snaps when we were watching the Rose Bowl game. I mean, they're snapping plays off 10, 15 seconds in between each one. And yeah, that's how Ohio State stands to maybe suffer if Oregon sees that opportunity and takes advantage of it. 34 points off turnovers against Florida State, all of which came in the second half. It's just mind-boggling to me, a team that can just exert its will. They just took control of that game, and really Florida State looked completely out of sorts. But you were talking about how Oregon's going to put up points and yards. But it doesn't mean that they're great at defending against yards either. They gave up 528 yards to Florida State. You wouldn't know it by the scoreline, 59-20, because Florida State shot themselves in the feet so many times, and Oregon kept scoring and scoring and scoring. So with 5 Florida State turnovers, they were doomed in that game. So I think that, circling back to your point, if Ohio State does win the turnover battle, it will be miraculous because clearly Oregon doesn't turn the ball over and then they take care of it when they have it. But yeah, Ohio State needs to win that battle. And the time of possession is a good point too, because Oregon, I looked this up, this is crazy. They score so quickly that they are 9th last in the country in average time of possession. They don't need minutes and seconds on the clock to score, and that's what makes them so dangerous. What do you see from each team matchup-wise? Because I've scouted Oregon's defense. You're well aware of what Ohio State brings to the table. What do you see actually going down in Arlington when we're there on Monday?
Well, quite honestly, on Ohio State's side, Joey Bosa needs to have a big day. In the postseason, he's kind of been a little bit neutralized with either the double team, and it's opened up Michael Bennett from the middle of the line to be able to come in and put pressure, but he wasn't able to he was able to put pressure on Blake Sims, but wasn't able to sack him.
Yep.
In fact, the sack leader from that game was Darren Lee with 2.
Defensive player of the game,
Defensive
too.
MVP
Yep.
also in the Sugar Bowl. So on Ohio State's side, the defense needs to put pressure on Mariota. But on Oregon's side, Mariota just has so many targets on the field. Like, If you're wearing a green jersey, you could quite honestly be a target for Mariota. In the backfield, they have Royce Freeman, who is their running back leader throughout most of the season. But from the Rose Bowl, the standout running back was Thomas Tyner, who had 13 rushes and 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the wide receiver position, they had a 5 wide receiver set. They can line up as many as they want to. And each one of them, quite honestly, could catch the ball for a touchdown. Byron Marshall, I believe, has the most all-purpose yards throughout the season, but Darren Carrington from the Rose Bowl was the standout receiver. 7 receptions, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns on his own. That's what you're going to see. How can Ohio State, they no longer have to worry about 1 or 2 players like Amari Cooper and TJ Yeldon. They have to worry about lining up in the nickel and neutralizing 5 wide receivers, or gamble a little bit and put it into Marcus Mariota's hands and put pressure on him and make him force a mistake out of him, which I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I like your point about Carrington and Marshall, because I expect them to turn to the screen game against Ohio State, because if they can make, we've talked about over pursuit by the safeties in the past, and I think that if they can make at least 1 linebacker and 1 safety, sort of over pursue on the perimeter, and then Mariota is certainly skilled enough to make them bite, whether it be by play action or with the screen. Carrington, of course, with the bubble screen. Marshall, all-purpose yardage leader, speak for itself. I don't think Oregon is going to have to reinvent the wheel, but Ohio State's going to be on their toes, because they certainly. I love your comment about the 5 wide package, because that's going to be dangerous. They could very well line up one of the running backs or tight end Evan Bayless in the slot, and suddenly Ohio State could be out of sorts and out of answers. So as far as what Ohio State's offense is facing in the Oregon Ducks defense, it's kind of an interesting look, because they run a base 3-4. So what changes is basically what we're getting at. It's not anything familiar, because we're so used to looking at a 4-3 with 2 ends and 2 defensive tackles. So these guys with 2 defensive ends and a nose tackle, all of a sudden your outside linebackers become far more important. Blitzing, they're going to be in Cardale Jones's face. The O-line is going to be crucial. Of course, Jacoby Boren, a little bit of an injury concern against Alabama, but he did come back and they had a strong game as a unit, that is, the O-line. But what sticks out to me is the secondary and their ability to come up with these turnovers and break up passes. But those outside linebackers, both the starters and the second stringers, they're just going to keep rotating throughout the game. So we'll run down a couple names. So those 4 linebackers that I mentioned, Tony Washington and Tyson Coleman, those are your starters. But that doesn't mean that Tarodney Previtt and Christian French are any slouches, because French leads the team in sacks with 6.5 as a backup outside linebacker. That's crazy to me, based on what we've been witnessing all year with Ohio State. And then you have Previtt, who has 5 sacks on the year. He had 3 forced fumbles. He had a sack against Florida State. He's played in all 14 games. So the depth becomes a concern for Ohio State, because they're going to be getting different looks, different sizes of guys blitzing off either end of the line. And then you mentioned the 2010 game against Auburn. I'm glad that you did that, because if you do the math, there are some guys that were in their redshirt year who are now redshirt seniors.
Yep. The last time they played the national championship.
Exactly. So they may not have been on the field, but that doesn't negate their experience of having been a part of that team that made that journey. So you got 13 redshirt seniors that were a member of that 2010 team, of course, under Chip Kelly. Now, Mark Helfrich has been there too, second-year head coach. But he was the offensive coordinator for that championship trip. So this team has experience that Ohio State, frankly, lacks. Kind of across the board, we've got this sophomore class of playmakers. But you've got Eric Dargan, the free safety. He leads the team with 90 total tackles, and he has 7 picks on the year with 2 forced fumbles. We were talking about Ifo Ekpre-Olomu going down with injury. Yeah, you like that? I got that name right.
Wow.
Yeah, the cornerback for Oregon being out for the game against Florida State. Everybody said, oh my gosh, that's going to affect the Vegas line. What are they going to do now? Jameis Winston's going to burn them downfield. Frankly, in my opinion, he's not their star playmaker in the defensive backfield. It's Dargan, the free safety, and the cornerback on the other side, Troy Hill. That guy has defended 19 passes this year, and he's broken up 18 of them. That's mind-blowing to me. Those are the numbers that Bradley Roby was supposed to have in 2013.
Yeah.
That is top-notch stuff. So, and strong safety Reggie Daniels, he's tied for third on the team tied for third in solo tackles on the team. This defensive backfield is going to be a bear for Ohio State to go up against, which is a great matchup because Cardale Jones is the vertical passing threat. He has the stronger arm. It makes for far more entertaining football knowing that he very well could be forced to make long downfield bombs.
He's also the vertical running threat.
Yeah, he makes himself vertical. But I love this matchup defensively because it's, like I said, it's weird for us to look at because of what we're used to with everything being so centralized with, the defensive ends and the Mike linebacker and the weak side linebacker, and it's just a different look. But hopefully, what Michael Bennett was saying, with offenses being sort of comparable, Oregon defensively poses a great matchup for this very talented and diverse skill set that they have on offense for the Buckeyes. So let's go into score predictions, shall we?
Let's go.
You predicted that Ohio State would beat Alabama, and you were correct.
Yes. That's all that matters.
So you're a little off on the numbers, but what did you have, 49-45?
Yes,
right?
yes I did. So, I did say it was going to be a shootout and would come down to the wire.
There you go.
Thank you, Titus Powell.
Well, thank you to Ezekiel Elliott, too, for having an 85-yard scamper that nobody thought would happen.
That did cut down into the victory margin for me.
Yeah, there you go. So I did pick Alabama, but I got their score total right, so I'm hanging my hat on that. Because I did the same thing when Minnesota lost. I got their score total right.
Well, that's why you can't believe that we're here having this special right now.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so let's go to some numbers. What do you think Oregon is going to put up? And
35.
Okay. And what do you think Ohio State's going to put up?
38.
Oh!
I'm putting it on Nurnberger. Sean, don't let me down.
Upset special. I like it. Nurnberger has been pretty effective. He struggled in a couple of the early games. Had the 2 crucial misses against Virginia Tech, but he's been pretty good for a freshman.
He's the leading scorer on the team.
Yeah, that's a great stat. I love that. The Ohio State scores so often that their kicker has to kick so many PATs that he's the leading scorer. It's great. Okay, and who are you going to be your key players that you select from either team?
Key players from either team, other than the obvious, the low-hanging fruit ones.
Sure.
I'm going to go with Byron Marshall on Oregon.
Okay.
I think he feels kind of like their utility kind of back, if you will, if there is such a thing even. I think because he can effectively run the ball, he can catch the ball, and special teams, if that plays into it, he has to have a better game than he did against Florida State to kind of give Oregon that edge against Ohio State. And on Ohio State side, I want to go with Darren Lee.
Okay.
I mean, this is a guy who came into the program, was a quarterback in high school from New Albany, came into the program. Urban Meyer didn't put too much trust into him. Under Coach Luke Fickell, he developed him into quite the linebacker and has now become the Sugar Bowl defensive MVP. Throughout the season, he's had several defensive plays that have completely changed momentum in the games. He had the fumble recovery for a touchdown early in the season against Navy.
Yep.
And, I mean...
He had the big play in Maryland, too. Raekwon got the touchdown, but wasn't he the one to...
He intercepted the pass.
Interception, that's what it was.
So, I mean, you look at someone on the defense that could come up big in a game like this, it's Darren Lee.
Yeah. Okay, so you're going to put me on the spot now. I love your pick, by the way. That's a great score pick. I think both teams score more points, though. I'm not sure that I have faith in these defenses, scoring defenses, I should say. So Oregon allowing 528 to Florida State. I think Ohio State is capable of more. Mm-hmm. I think they have better efficiency because they have fewer turnovers. I think Ohio State could put 600 yards on the board. I'm going. Oh man, this is tough. I'm going 55-49 Ohio State. I don't like the idea.
That's got to be some sort of scoring record.
I mean, you did say it was going to be a fun game to watch.
It's not going to be a boring. Don't go outside the living room for popcorn before halftime.
55-49. I think Ohio State. The more we've scouted this, I'm certainly impressed by Oregon's defensive playmakers, but not what the unit accomplishes as a whole. I think Ohio State has plenty of depth. I talked about the outside linebacker depth for Oregon, but offensively, I don't think any team is playing better offensively than Ohio State right now, which is quite a statement based on who they have under center in number 8, Marcus Mariota. So, okay, my key playmakers, I mean, I kind of talked about a lot of them already, but I feel like if Eric Dargan and Troy Hill in the defensive backfield, I kind of did the same thing against Alabama where I picked 2 Ohio State players. I feel like if those guys struggle, then Oregon could be in for a long day. Because you have a free safety and a cornerback. Their star cornerback, in my opinion, sorry, Ifo Ekpre-Olomu, but I think your counterpart on the other side of the field is more impressive statistically. So Eric Dargan, as I said, leading tackler. Maybe that's low-hanging fruit because he's the leading tackler, but we've talked about how that's a concern when a defensive back is your leading tackler.
Yeah.
That means you're letting plays through.
You've already given up 6 yards.
Totally.
You keep doing that, and you're just going to keep marching down the field.
And look at this guy. He's a great partner to have on camera because he provided a segue without even knowing it. 6 yards per play. Try 6.9 because that's my star player for Ohio State. Ezekiel Elliott averaging 6.9 yards per carry. The guy's a monster. If he has we thought everyone thought Alabama would bottle him up. And what did he do? He had a career best against Alabama.
Sugar Bowl record.
Sugar Bowl record as well. Good point. You were there. You should know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the Buckeyes. It will be an upset. I'm not saying put my scoreline down on the Vegas sportsbook, but I think they absolutely can get it done despite Oregon's seniority. Those 13 redshirt seniors. If you think that they're not going to be crucial leaders and contributors in the locker room, then you don't know this program because you have guys that stick around for 5 years. That says a lot about this Ducks franchise. So Helfrich will have his boys ready, as will Meyer. But I think that's going to do it for us, unless you have any parting thoughts for our viewers, Aaron.
Oh, I think that's a wrap. I mean, Monday's kickoff, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central.
Yep.
We're both going to be there, so stay tuned for our little post-game wrap-up on the field.
Yeah, we'll be on the Dallas Cowboys field trying to emulate some of our
hot sports takes, if you will.
Hot sports takes, indeed. Yeah, we'll be down there on the field bringing you the post-game recap. And be sure, if you're interested at all, Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio is the reason I'm traveling into the game, in addition to helping Aaron with his videography duties. But the broadcast is free to listen to. So OhioStateSports.net and, of course, Lantern TV will be there documenting all the action. Follow us on Twitter at ChalkTalkOSU with hashtag CTOSU. I haven't said that in a little while. And we'll be bringing you, of course, Ohio State sports throughout the semester. So this is kind of a pre-kickoff to our spring bout of coverage. So that will do it for us. Until our next episode, enjoy the national championship. We sure will. And tune in next time. We'll see you later.